Good afternoon. Happy Saturday. You're listening to the Ask Dr. Ernst show. My name is Dr. Aaron Ernst, and we are live broadcasting today with a very special topic, the continuation of our heart health series. How do we get down to the root cause of heart disease? And today we're going to talk about something that no one discusses. It's this concept of a neurological, biochemical communication to your heart. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, we talked about blood pressure. Last week, we talked about cholesterol. And there's this generalized myth that if your blood pressure's high, if your cholesterol's high, if you have type 2 diabetes, that you're a ticking time bomb for heart disease. And yet, there's plenty of people who have high blood pressure, have super high cholesterol, and never end up with a heart attack or stroke or any heart issues. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is, I think, the missing link. So if you have high blood pressure, this brain neurological biochemical communication disruption, aka your brain doesn't talk to your heart, could be the reason why your blood pressure's high. Now watch this. If you have discommunication between your brain and your liver, that could be why your cholesterol's high. Did you know that your cholesterol is an essential element that must be made by the body? Almost 2/3 of the cholesterol is made by your body in your liver. And watch this, in response to the amount of inflammation you have. So if you have high cholesterol, you have a lot of inflammation, and inflammation is the secret. So what we're discussing today is most people have been taught in standard elementary. Look, my kids are 6 and 11. If I ask them what organ controls all the other organs in your body, including your heart, they would say, your brain. Look, Dr. Seuss has this book, Inside Your Outside Body, where he takes the two kids and he's the cat in the hat and he goes inside a human body and he goes, let's start at the top. Your brain controls everything. It makes you think, act, and feel. There's a spinal cord and spinal nerves that go to every organ and tell them what to do. So if our kids, basic elementary books teach the concept that every organ in your body is connected to the master organ, it makes us think that maybe there's something wrong with how your brain is communicating with your organ. If you have a heart problem, if you have a thyroid problem, if you have diabetes, if you have. So here's the thing. We know that there is something called the enteric nerve system, gut-heart connection. We know there's a neurological connection between the brain and the heart. And some of the current research is actually showing, by the way, your brain is literally telling your heart when to beat, how to beat, the rhythm of the beats, the pressure of the beats, and even the repairability of the heart itself. And if we're going to ask the question of what is the number one most essential nutrient needed for someone with heart disease, it's not sugar for energy. It's not fats for proteins and carbs and stuff like that for the fuel we eat. It is one simple nutrient you can't live without, and that is oxygen. I'm going to blow the lid today. There is a connection between your spinal position and the efficiency of you breathing in oxygen. And if you think about it, if you're low oxygen, your brain is going to say, oh my gosh, all the cells of the body need oxygen. Heart beat faster, stronger, harder, because you can't live without oxygen. So your brain has sensors in it that can determine how much oxygen is in your cells. And if the cells are starving for oxygen, the brain says, heart, work harder. And so what happens is the pressure goes up, the rhythm goes up, and we label that as some sort of early sign of heart disease inappropriately. We go to our physicians, they put us on medications, we lower the pressures, we block the arrhythmias, we take the heart rate down. Meanwhile, your brain's over here going, I told you to beat faster. We need the oxygen. You took this drug, which is slowing everything down, so I'm going to have to push harder now. Hey, heart, harder, harder. And what happens is the one med now requires 2 to keep your blood pressure down or your arrhythmias down. Do you see where I'm going with this, guys? Let's just think. Every diagnostic condition, the medication can hint to you as what's going on and what's wrong and what needs to be corrected. But in this instance, here's the challenge. Most of the time, heart issues are an oxygenation issue. You're not pulling enough air into your lungs when you breathe. You're not pushing that air from your blood into your cells, and that's the big key right there, guys. Well, Dr. Ernst, I put a pulse ox meter on my finger, and it's reading 97%. I'm breathing deep. I'm getting oxygen. I am oxygenated. Yeah, your blood has oxygen in it. But remember that oxygen has to pop off the red blood cell, cross the membrane, get into the tissue. Could be nerve tissue. That's numbness and tingling. Could be, like an organ tissue, liver, spleen, pancreas, gallbladder. Okay, watch this. You need oxygen to burn fat. So without oxygen, you can't burn fat. And where does the fat show up? It shows up around your heart. That's called heart disease. It shows up in your liver. That's called fatty liver disease. It shows up around your abdomen. And you go, well, I guess I need to work harder at the gym. No, you need to understand the neurological biomechanical communication system called brain to heart. Okay, real quick. It's super deep, not complicated, but we have all of the information you need about this brain-heart connection in this free ebook. I'm going to turn to the page to show it to you guys. I believe it is page 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Here we go. Look at that. Boom, right there. See this? It says at the top of this free ebook that you can get right now, the neurological system cardiac function evaluation. And it shows how the research is showing the vagus nerve connects to the heart and regulates rhythm, rate, pressure, speed. We have thermograms where you can get your spine checked, not because of pain, but to find out if the nerve system is out of balance to the heart. We show how there's specific x-rays that need to be done. There's a structural vagal nerve assessment that you can have your local chiropractors do. All the stuff I'm talking about today is inside our ebook, Heart Heal Thyself. If you want this, it's free. Text your name and your email and the word heart to 704-906-2094. Again, 704-906-2094. We need the word heart. It pings us so we know what you want and your name and your email. And not only do you get this ebook for free, but you get access to my Heart Heal Thyself Summit that I'm hosting on the 12th of November. It's a webinar. It's online. It's free. We just need to know if you're joining us. We currently have over 200 people registered, so we can hold as many as we can fill that digital room with. So if you know someone with high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, and arrhythmia, palpitation, risk for strokes, risk for heart disease, let's get them on that webinar, because I'm telling you, when you implement these Heart Heal Thyself strategies, blood pressure can drop in 90 days, blood sugars can drop in 90 days, arrhythmias, cholesterols, palpitations, everything you need to do is in the book, and then I'll walk you through step by step on how to do it at the webinar. So again, one last time, for right now at least, 704-906-2094. That's 704-906-2094. Call now, text now, name, email, the word heart, and you're in. All right, listen. Neurological communication happens when the heart and the brain talk to each other through what's called a nerve impulse. So I want you to think about it like this. Your brain has hundreds of thousands of independent neurons inside of it that are sending signals everywhere, not just to your heart. But for you to even hear me right now through whatever channel you're listening to, for you to see me through that camera right there, thousands upon thousands of signals going into the brain, being processed, sent back out. So I want you to think of it like you don't want to be thinking about all of these things. So you would lose your mind if you had to think about everything your brain was doing. So we have this thing called the hindbrain or midbrain, or a section that's automatic, like deep in the recesses of your mind. You have the hypothalamus, you have the hippocampus, you have the pituitary. You have all of these sections where, thank God, signals can come up, be automatically interpreted, and a response can go down without you having to think about it. So imagine this. If you had to regulate your own blood pressure, you wouldn't be able to drive, think, talk, eat, act, or even sleep, because your blood pressure would go all over the place. If you had to make the stomach acid that you need to digest your food every single time you eat a piece of food, you would make the wrong acids, you would make the wrong enzymes. You would eat fat and make a protein enzyme for it, because that's how specific these signals are. This is called the autonomic system. It happens by itself automatically. And there is study after study after study showing that the autonomic nerve system regulates the health of your heart, of your metabolism, of your pancreas, of your kidneys, because we can't willingly say, let's make more urine in my left kidney. Think it, make it. That does not happen. Instead, look at the wisdom of how your body was created. Your kidney senses the blood that flows through it and says, hey, there's too much sodium, not enough potassium, there's too much fluid, there's too much protein, there's too much sugar, there's not enough of this, and it automatically can release the floodgates of the excess, and it holds back on what you're deficient on. So if you need more potassium, your kidneys will tighten down the potassium filtration, increase the sodium filtration, and you'll literally pee out salty urine to save your butt. So here's what happens. When you have a disc breakdown in how the kidney regulates itself, and you retain too much sodium and you pee out all your potassium, that's called high blood pressure, fellas and ladies, right there. So your kidneys could be causing your blood pressure issues that your doctor is blaming on your diet, your genetics, and your history, and is telling you you're at risk for a heart attack, which might be true because of elevated blood pressure over time, but the cause could be a kidney problem. Same thing. Your heart can physically feel the emotional reactions that go on in your mind. For example, negative feelings like anger can make your heart become erratic in its rhythm. These erratic patterns are turned into a signal. The signal sends out a hormone called epinephrine, which is fight or flight, and it prepares you for a conflict of danger. Cortisol goes up, blood sugar goes up, blood pressure goes up. And what was the cause of that? Your uncontrolled anger response to a situation. So is it true that stress can make you have a heart attack? Yeah, but only if you're unavailable to monitor that stress internally. It's not the outside stressor, it's the internal response to the stress. We know that when your brain organizes itself and you process through an angry feeling appropriately, you could change the reaction to that stress. So when someone says, I had a really hard day at work and that's why my blood pressure's high, or that's why my back hurts, or whatever, what you're expressing is you're acknowledging the brain biochemical communication process to your body. So think of it like this. When you're stressed out and you're angry, don't you sort of sweat a little bit more? Don't you breathe faster? Don't you kind of clench your fists and roar? Okay, but how did that happen? The emotion of anger or frustration or upset was perceived in the brain, and hormones were secreted, and the body responded through that neurological biochemical communication. Now watch this. If you can think yourself into high blood pressure, well, you can also do the same and unthink it. The anatomy and the functions of your heart are neurologically connected. And listen, it means that the heart will send signals to the brain, and the brain will send signals back to the heart using this neurological pathway called your nervous system. So I want you to think of it like this. If you're going for a run, your cells are going, hey, listen, activity's gone up. We're burning sugar like crazy. We got a lot of lactic acid. We got a lot of carbon dioxide. We need help. So the system, the blood fluids, they start to change in their pH. And your brain senses the change in the pH and goes, I got your back. Kidneys do this. Liver do this. Heart, pump faster. We got to get that carbon dioxide out. And we have to bring more oxygen in. Do you notice? Oxygen. The more oxygen that comes in, the more the carbon dioxide sticks to the red blood cells, goes to your lungs. And because you're now hoofing, get it? That's all happening because you're trying to get that carbon dioxide out to balance your pH. So we know the heart's intrinsic system is vital for maintaining cardiovascular function in areas of high output. But at the same token, watch this. When you have a boss barking down your neck, you have a bill that's unpaid and you're stressing out, you have an email that just made you go to the moon and back, that same thing happens even though you're not hoofing it. So your breathing rates go shallow and you breathe more. Your blood pressure goes up because it has to push the blood around because your carbon dioxide levels are high because you've deoxygenated yourself. The signals that come from the brain to the heart and from the heart to the brain regulate cardiovascular function. So why is it today that so many of us have heart disease? It's partly because we're getting freaked out left and right over things that technically shouldn't freak us out, pushing us into fight or flight responses as if we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. And if we don't learn how to manage that reaction or calm down our nerve system, we go into fight or flight while we're sitting at the office sending an email. And we feel all freakish, and so we go to the coffee or we go to the energy drinks or we go to the things that help us to feel better. Under normal physiological conditions, your heart's intrinsic nerve system's job is to maintain cardiovascular health. So we need the ability for the heart to function properly. And here's what happens. A lot of you have a heart that is working as if you've been under attack by some foreign enemy, or you are being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, or you're up in a tree because you've got bears trying to climb their way up after you. In short bursts, there's nothing wrong with that kind of stuff, right? We need to work out. We need to get in the cardio zones. We need to stress us. We need to push our pressure up. But when you're at rest and chemically those signals are being sent, it's as if the same thing is happening. So we now understand that various constraints to your stress response can drive things like your blood pressure up and your cholesterol up and your cortisol up. So here's what I'm trying to teach you. Stop blaming your genetics and blaming your diet. We have to understand that you need to learn how to control this biochemical reaction called stress. A lot of you have a really difficult time calming yourself down. It's almost kind of like, when you got that 5-year-old who's yelling and screaming and you're like, because you're a good parent, they run to you and you kind of rub their back and you rock them, you soothe to them. You don't say everything's going to be okay. You teach them the reaction you're having is it's normal. I understand why you're feeling this way. Let's kind of work through this. You rub their back, right? It's a 5-year-old. You're rubbing their back. You're rocking them back and forth. It's a soothing technique. This is why a lot of adults tend to sway very heavily. You'll see it when they're stressed out. They start going like this. They're like, all right, and their fists are up, but they're swaying because that sway is an inherent soothing reaction. So if we can get you to recognize it's not always your diet, it's not ever your genetics, we've disproven that the reason you've been told you have a history of heart disease is, number one, you need to learn how to calm down the right way. I'm not saying like, hey, calm down. I'm saying recognize what was the trigger that made you feel the emotion you felt. Where's that coming from? When in the past have you felt like that? Why did you have that reaction when other people don't? Investigate the underlying response and stop blaming it on, well, it's because this is what everybody else did and because they did this to me. Do you realize, I don't know if you know this or not, no one can make you feel anything. Only you can feel the reaction. I can have some people come up and give me a hug and I can feel really good about that reaction. Or I can have another person give me a hug and I can absolutely despise that reaction. The hug was the same. My response to it is my decision. Sometimes people say, well, when they said this, it really offended me. Well, let's look into why did that offend you? Because they said the same thing to somebody down there and it inspired them. So what's going on in your world that makes you take offense to a statement when someone else is positive behind that same statement? Do you see where I'm going with this? The outside stressor is never the cause. It's how you react to it. Some people are put in very stressful situations and they thrive. Their blood pressure goes down, their cholesterol goes down, their heart rate goes down. But you, on the other hand, have elevated blood pressures, elevated heart rates, elevated cortisols. It's the reaction. Now, here's what they've discovered. Watch this. Your vagus nerve and its tone, the health of that nerve, actually has been shown to determine your reaction. So your internal stress in your nerve system determines if you overreact on the external. And I'm going to prove this to you, okay? If you have kids, I want you to think of it like this. Little Timmy and little Johnny and little Susie have been like pushing your buttons all day long. And then something simple happens, like, I don't know, they knock a cup over on the table and you go volcanic on them. You know what I'm talking about? Like, boom! Okay? They have found out that if you were to do some vagal nerve relaxation techniques, that the input of the amount of things that go into you before you go volcanic increase. So watch, you have mom A. Timmy did 5 things. Susie did 5 things. Cup gets knocked over. That's number 11. Boom, mom goes volcanic. Mom number 2 over here has been getting vagal nerve therapy or has learned how to do what I'm going to teach you today. Certain breathing techniques to stimulate the vagus nerve. She sees a chiropractor regularly. She knows how to do vagal nerve relaxation techniques, which again, I'll teach you today. Well, those 5 things happen from the kids times 2. We've got 10. There comes the cup getting knocked over. And this mom is kind of like, it just happens. And she cleans it up and she's like, I'm all right. Whereas that mom went ballistic on her kids and on herself and now feels guilty at night when the kids are asleep because she's eating ice cream going, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, trust me. You guys have all been there. Vagal nerve stimulation is a technique to calm down the internal angst of how your brain talks to your organs. Studies show that the vagus nerve plays an exceptional role in maintaining what's called homeostasis, the ability to adapt to stress and the ability to adapt to positive reactions. The link between the vagus nerve and your heart has actually been studied and found. And the neat thing is, with high frequency variability, where you can put electrical stimulations and other kind of stimulations into the vagus nerve, you can fix what's called vagal tone. Now, I know you guys are probably like, God, you're speaking Greek to me. Please, for the love of God, download this ebook. Everything I'm talking to you about is in here. How to check vagal tone. What is vagal tone? I promise you, the newest of newest research says heart disease is caused by 2 things: lack of proper oxygen and vagal nerve stress. We know the oxygenation issue is rampant today. Lots of people are on CPAP machines. They can't sleep through the night without choking on themselves. And we're showing signs of hypoxia, not enough oxygen. You know what those are? Elevations in blood pressure, rate, rhythm, palpitations, also elevated cholesterol, elevated blood sugars, fatigue, chronic tiredness. The nature of like, man, I almost fell asleep while driving and it's only 10 a.m. in the morning. The inability to really be awake, alert, and oriented. When you oxygenate a body and when you fix the vagus nerve, I have seen people's hearts literally turn around like you can't imagine. And I'm talking about classic cardiovascular risk factors. HDL goes up when you fix the vagus nerve and oxygen. LDL goes down. Triglycerides go down. CRP goes down. Homocysteine goes down. Fibrinogen goes down. All of the reactions we look for and we score a heart for health go down. Now, here's a fun side note. I was literally at a conference this last weekend, and it's a bunch of medical doctors, naturopaths, functional medicine doctors, chiropractors, and the key speaker stood up on stage and said, oh, by the way, all of the tests you all have been taught to measure someone's heart health are meaningless in actually detecting the likelihood of them having a heart attack. Let me give you an example of that. Cholesterol's really high, blood sugar really high. Heart disease is rampant, so we've been taught, right? There's an arrhythmia, there's pressure elevations, CRP's up, all the inflammatory markers are up. That does not mean that a heart attack is on the horizon. Whereas if your saturation of oxygen is low when you sleep, meaning you have a CPAP or something like that, or you don't even know it's happening because you're not measuring your oxygen when you sleep. If your oxygenation goes down less than 90% multiple times throughout the night, That right there is indication of future heart attack. If you have something called an elevated calcium score, which is a special test where they take x-rays of your heart and they look to see how much calcium, not cholesterol, calcium is in your vasculature. If that is elevating at a rate higher than 14% annually, you are literally setting yourself up for a heart attack. Well, Dr. Ernst, how come nobody's talking about this? Because the research is brand new. 2018 study, listen to this, used a specific type of stimulation to the vagus nerve and found out that if you zap the vagus nerve with a small amount of electricity, you increase heart function, you decrease palpitations, arrhythmias, blood pressure, and it actually shows significant increase in cardiovascular function. And they actually were able to induce, by blocking the nerve, bradycardia, tachycardia, and other cardiovascular adverse events like ventricular tachycardia, arrhythmias, and elevated blood pressure. This 2018 study showed if you stimulate the nerve the right way, you get a good effect, but if you block the nerve, then you get a negative cardiovascular effect. This is ridiculous. They're basically proving that if you damage the vagus nerve, you will have heart effects. If you fix a vagus nerve, you lose the heart effects. To put this in simpler terms, it's this. If the nerve between your brain and your heart is disconnected, you cannot have normal cardiovascular function, and your heart loses the ability to talk to your brain, and your brain loses the ability to talk to your heart. So now we see the classic signs that a cardiologist would say, oh my gosh, I'm so worried for your heart. It's not beating properly. We have an inappropriate wave on an EKG. You have palpitations. You have arrhythmias. You have a valve prolapse. You have. Do you see where I'm going with this? All the things a cardiologist finds wrong with the heart are symptoms. They are effects, not causes, effects of the underlying cause, which is either lack of oxygen, because your heart is literally starving for air, because it's in your blood but not in the cells, and lack of good vagal signal from brain to heart. So let's talk about some strategies to create a very happy heart brain. We want the brain talking to the heart, and we want the heart talking to the brain. Okay. How do we leverage this, what is now known as the brain-heart connection, so that you can take the responsibility in your hands and lower your blood pressure and lower your cholesterol and lower your arrhythmias and stop the palpitations and get your heart going back to being automatically taken care of? Okay. Number one, it's going to sound insanely crazy, but we have been talking about this since the beginning of time on my shows. Chiropractic care is not just for neck pain, back pain, and headaches. It is not just because you're in a car accident and something hurts. By definition, chiropractic care is the art of realigning the tone or the signals of your nerve system through changing the alignment of the spinal bones that surround that nerve system. So if you think about it, your nerve system is so important that when God made you, he was like, I want to wrap this thing in a complete armor case of bone. The brain is so important that it's physically encased in a hard shell called your skull. Like, it would take an act of God for you to get through your skull. Okay, it can happen medically. We can drill into it. We can cut it. But I don't know if you've ever seen someone have a drill done to, it is like, and maybe we get through it in like 5 minutes. Okay, so it is fully encased in what is considered an armored steel tank. Because if you damage your brain, your entire body is affected. This is why nerve damage and brain damage and, concussions and stuff like that are so dangerous. Now, from your brain comes this tube, and it's not very big. It's about the size of your thumb, called the brain stem. And in the brain stem are every single nerve fiber in your entire body. You want to feel your toenails at the bottom of your feet? There's nerves that go all the way up to your brain that do that. And they're inside the spinal cord. What's interesting is the section between your skull and the first bone is the brain stem proper. And here exit all your cranial nerves. Now watch this. Cranial nerve 10 is the vagus nerve. So it comes out like right behind your ear, just in that little soft spot between the back of your skull and your neck. And it goes to everything. Heart, lungs, liver, spleen, pancreas, gallbladder, intestines, reproductive tissues, kidneys, ovaries, testicles. You use that cranial nerve for everything you don't have to think about for organ control. So for example, cranial nerves that go to my eyes, I don't have to wake up and think, man, make sure I can see today. It just happens. I can't turn off my left eye and leave my right eye on without blinking. Okay. And even that, it's not off. It's just there's no light coming in, so I don't see through it. But if I have cranial nerve damage to my optic nerve, boom, I'm blind in whichever eye was damaged. Number 2, smell, olfactory. Oh man, it smells like whatever in here. Okay, you literally pull air in through your nose and you smell neurologically the scent molecules floating around. Your brain says, oh, it smells like strawberries. It smells like, whatever, like trash. I don't know, whatever. Okay, if you were to cut one of those cranial nerves, you lose smell. Cranial nerve number 10 is your organ controls. So your heart, your lungs, your liver, your spleen, your pancreas. If you damage cranial nerve number 10, sayonara. Organs don't work. Now, that would be if you cut it. And the likelihood that you guys are walking around with cut cranial nerves is near zero. Because if it was cut, guess where you would be? In a box under the ground, and your body would be decaying. Okay, so watch. Instead of compressing and cutting that nerve, if you irritate it, if you take its function from perfection down to something less, like say 40%, 30%, 20%, now your brain is going, hey, heart, I want you to beat at this pressure. And the heart goes, what? I only heard half that signal, so I'll give you half that. And then the blood flow and the oxygenation and everything changes. Or your body's going like this. Slow that heart down. And the heart goes, what? I only heard half that. I'm only going to slow. So do you see how it's a communication process? And understanding this dialogue is extremely complex, but yet very simple. Is the brain talking to the heart properly? Now, how do we test this? How do we find out if your brain and your heart are not working properly? Well, number 1, thermography, this guy down here, is an exceptionally simple and easy way to scan the nerves of your back and your neck and find out if they're hot. Now, why would we care if a nerve is hot? Well, resistance is heat. Just take an electrical wire for a minute and put more amperage through a wire than it can handle. It gets hot. And if it gets too hot, it's going to melt. So if the nerves in your body are hot, that's a problem. Number 2, we can go deep and we can take an x-ray. You can do an MRI. You can do something. We can look at that spine. I know it's real small, but there it is. And we can say, wait a minute. We know the space where the nerve comes out. We see that there's a change in the structure, and we can measure by using a computer the amount of compression to the vagus nerve. Let me give you an example. We know the space between the skull and the first bone of your neck needs to be open at approximately a certain angle. And I'm going to give it to you. It's 18 degrees. So if you walk into our office and we do a vagal nerve assessment, you're at 36 degrees. We go, oh my gosh, that's 2 times the amount of pressure placed on your vagus nerve. And we can score how much irritation there is. Now, here's what's fascinating. As a functional physician, a chiropractor, and a doctor of natural medicine, when I work with a patient that has high blood pressure, 99.99% of the time, we see a hot spot on their cranial nerve number 10, and we see a skull that's gone into extension, putting pressure on the nerve. Now, we will do chiropractic techniques to lift the skull, and we'll do some natural medicine to help them deal with their stressors, their diet, their inflammation, their toxicities. And guess what happens about 98% of the time? Pressure goes away. Now, we have someone with an arrhythmia, a VTAC, a ventricular tachycardic event, where their heart is literally slamming. Both ventricles are squeezing at the same time when it should go lub-dub. Remember that? Lub-dub. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Guess what happens if it goes left, right, left, right? It literally feels like your life is being sucked out of you and an elephant is sitting on your chest. Why? If a pump goes the same at the same time, it's like pull, push, and you literally suck the life out of your heart. Ventricular tachycardias hurt. They require a tremendous amount of change medically to fix. Well, ventricular tachycardic patient comes into us, and if we determine that there's a blockage on one of their cranial nerves, we release the cranial nerve and we work on their functional, health. We're decreasing inflammation. We're getting rid of toxins. We're cleaning out their guts. We're working on their liver. We're changing their diet. And what do you know? Ventricular tachycardia goes away. How is that possible? Because your brain regulates every function of every organ inside of you. And today we're talking about your heart. But guess what? It's the same thing for your thyroid, and it's the same thing for your kidneys, and it's the same thing for your pancreas, and it's the same thing for your colon. It's the same thing for your ovaries, and it's the same thing for your uterus, and it's the same thing for your prostate. But if you understand this, getting your vagus nerve to calm down will help you to calm down, which helps your system to calm down. So let's talk about chiropractic care. That is the number one thing I think anyone who wants to holistically deal with a heart health issue should do. Step number one. You need to seek out a structural chiropractor who can do a spinal thermography and a special weighted x-ray to determine if your vagus nerve can handle stress when applied. And if you find it and you fix it, you have now reversed nerve tone interference. But could you be nerve tone interference free and still struggle with relaxation techniques? Of course. So some strategies for helping you to get a great healthy heart. Go start seeking structural chiropractic care and take care of your vagus nerve, number one. Number two, practice the art of relaxation techniques, which will have a surprising cardiovascular upswing. There are numbers of techniques that can achieve what's called serotonin-boosted relaxation. What this means is you go through this art of calming yourself down and you release a hormone in your brain called serotonin. What we have found is that GABA and serotonin, which are two brain hormones, are very important for helping your heart to stay healthy. And this increase in serotonin and increase in GABA has been shown to lower blood pressure, lower arrhythmias, lower palpitations, and engage your heart. Engage it. Okay, so what are some techniques we can do for this? Well, meditation, which is the art of listening to some guided conversation with some soothing background music, can help you to change your focus from everything going on in your world to something simple and something focused. A lot of times you'll hear them say, all right, we're going to ask you to close your eyes, we're going to ask you to lay down, and we're going to ask you to just focus on your breathing. Take a deep breath in for a couple seconds, take a deep breath out for a couple seconds. Notice how they go straight to the breath first. Is that just me, or did anybody else not see that? Every time you do yoga, it's about breathing. Every time you do meditation, it's about breathing. What are we doing when we're focusing on our breathing? We're pulling more air in than we normally would, and we're exhaling more carbon dioxide out than we normally would. So your oxygenation saturation rates go up, and what is one of the core foundations of heart disease? Deoxygenated tissues, increase in carbon dioxide in the blood, and the brain goes, red alert. We need to increase rate, rhythm, and pressure to get rid of that carbon dioxide. So now your blood's flowing faster, your pressure's gone up, and you go to your doctor and they say, it looks like you got a bad gene that's turned on. Here's lisinopril. Have a nice day. They're missing the big picture. Okay, so you can literally start practicing guided meditations for relaxation and anxiety. If you don't know how to do this, go to YouTube. It's like free. Type in guided meditations to reduce anxiety, reduce stress. You can even download some apps. There are apps like Insight Timer and meditation and all these kind of things that can help you to get more focused. All right. The other thing we can start doing is working on great breathing techniques. Okay. So I want to talk to you about this concept that most of you are pulling air in through your upper ribs and not using your abdominal cavity at all. Again, why are we going after breathing techniques now? Well, we want to increase our oxygen so we can get more fluid flowing to the tissues and more air into your cells so that you burn your fats, proteins, and carbs more efficiently, decrease your lactic acid production, and help you to make more carbon dioxide properly to exhale out the waste. Okay, so many people breathe such that they only move their upper body. I think we talked about this a couple shows ago, but what you can do is have someone video record you with your eyes closed, just breathing some hard, deep breaths. So we would like grab a camera, focus it straight on their face and just say, all right, take a deep breath in. So I'm going to give you an example of this. Ready? My eyes are closed and I'm taking a deep breath in. And I'm blowing the air out. So did you see that? Those of you watching our live streams on Facebook and YouTube, did you see what happened? My shoulders went up, my chest went out, and I'm breathing through the top of my lungs. The problem with that is there's not a lot of oxygen exchange at the top. All of the blood flow, all of the oxygen is down in the diaphragmatic area. Your heart is here. So the lower lobes of the lungs have more square centimeter, square footage, whatever you want to call it, space for you to pull air in. If we pull air by lifting our rib cage, we're trying to fill from the top down. It's very inefficient and you don't get a lot of oxygen. So instead, what it should look like is this. Close your eyes, face the camera, and you don't want to see your shoulders move. You want to breathe like this. Notice how nothing's moving because it's all coming from my abdomen. The diaphragm is designed to go down upon an inspiration breath because that changes the pressure of the lungs and you literally pull the air in without even trying. Number two, it expands the lung square centimeter, square footage area. So you pull all this fresh oxygen into your lungs. It goes across the barriers of the lungs, gets in the red blood cells. They become hyperoxygenated. And it's the oxygen in your lungs that forces the carbon dioxide off the red blood cell. And then here comes your breath. And what are we exhaling, guys? We're exhaling carbon dioxide. So what a lot of you are doing is you're doing short, shallow, upper chest breathing, which doesn't pull a lot of oxygen in. So all the carbon dioxide that came from your cells is still stuck to the red blood cell. So it goes back down and your body will sense this. And your brain will go, why is there still a lot of carbon dioxide? Oh my gosh, you're not breathing right. Heart, you're going to have to work harder here. You're going to have to pump faster. We got to try to get this stuff out. And what happens? Pulse goes up, pressure goes up, and that is early indications for cardiovascular disease. Now watch this. Because there's a lot of inflammation, where does the inflammation come from, guys? The carbon dioxide is acidic. It creates a lactic acid buildup in the blood. Now we have acids floating around and we become inflamed. And inflammation drives what? It drives cholesterol plaquing, calcium hardening of the arteries, and then we see the plaque show up. And here's the ignorance, unfortunately, of the classic cardiologist. All this cholesterol elevation is giving you heart disease. They have it backwards. It's the lack of oxygen and the lack of good nerve supply, which caused all of that, which created the inflammation, which causes the cholesterol to elevate, and the inflammation's punching holes in the vessels of your arteries, and your brain is aware of this, so it says, hey, liver, make more cholesterol. The cholesterol comes out, and it tries to fill in the holes of the vessels and save your life. And because no one taught you it's a nerve oxygen issue, you keep punching holes, you keep building cholesterol, you throw more calcium, and your arteries get hard, and they say you have stage 1 atherosclerosis, now you need to take more medications, your blood pressure's high, we're going to put you on more medications, and then they say, oh, by the way, your arteries are clogged, we're going to roto-root them out, we're going to put a stent in, and we saved your life from a heart attack. So if you'd like to learn how to reverse all of that, this Heart Heal Thyself ebook just shared everything I mentioned to you. And oh, by the way, it has some herbs that you can start eating and taking now to help lower the inflammation. It has the vitamins and minerals you need to take that will help you to decrease your inflammation. It has all kinds of information on how you can do even an at-home test that's more specific for heart disease. We're not looking at cholesterol. We're not looking at blood pressure. We're looking for the root cause, nerve interference, lack of oxygen. If you solve those two things, you're going to have a massive turnaround within your global cardiovascular function because guess what? The vagus nerve tells your heart when, where, why, and how to beat. And your oxygenation process of how well you pull oxygen into your cell tissues determines the acidity of your blood and the ability for the heart to push harder. So the more carbon dioxide laden, the more deoxygenated, your body says, red alert, I need to make that heart go faster. I need to make it push harder. And the inflammation creates the scarring, the damage, and therefore cholesterol comes around. And therefore what happens is we get labeled as having heart disease. Hey, if you want this ebook, do this right now. Pick up the phone and call or text 704-906-2094. When you text, we need the word heart and we need your name and email, and this book will be sent to you immediately. You're also registering for the webinar I'm doing on Saturday, November 12th. It's at 10 a.m. in the morning. It's the Holistic Heart Health Summit here in Charlotte. I'm going to take you step by step through everything we just talked about today, help you to identify your underlying cause. And I even have a little special thing I'm going to teach you guys on how to do an at-home test that is more specific for your risks of heart disease, diabetes, any kind of chronic health issue, which you can do while you sleep at home. We're going to talk about that test and how to interpret the results and how to find out if you have the underlying cause, which you do, by the way, if you're taking blood pressure pills, which you do if you're taking cholesterol medications, which you do if you're taking any medication for any condition on the planet. You have some sort of a vagal nerve interference and you have deoxygenation of your cell tissues. How do we know that? Because it's the cause of all dysfunction of every organ. Why? Well, again, remember, the brain talks to every organ in your body. So let's role play this for a second. Here comes a type 2 diabetic that says, Dr. Ernst, I want to get off my diabetes medications. I want to lose weight. What do I need to do? We need to oxygenate your cells and we need to fix your vagus connection to your pancreas and your liver. Okay, so I do this and now guess what? I lost 40 pounds. My sugars are reset. I have more energy. I'm losing weight and I'm no longer diabetic. I was able to get off my medications. Can that happen? Absolutely. We see it all day long. Here comes someone with acid reflux. We go, all right, so the vagus nerve to your stomach is not properly communicating. It's sending the wrong signal. You're underproducing acid. Notice I said under, not over. Underproducing acid. That's causing a difficulty for you to digest your proteins. You're not pulling fats, proteins, and carbs in, so you're deficient in food because you have acid reflux. You have a vagal nerve disconnection, and your cells and your tissues are not getting enough oxygen. Watch this. I have kidney issues. I got kidney stones. I'm forming stones left and right inside of my kidneys. Well, the vagus nerve to your kidney is definitely not connecting properly, and there's some sort of mineralization issue. You're either underperforming with minerals or overperforming. Your pH is changing within your urine and your blood. You're becoming acidic because you're lacking oxygen. You're inflamed, and your kidneys are doing what they're told to do, which is spare the minerals and the nutrients and form them into a stone, because if you get rid of those, you could die. So we look at the stone as not something bad, but something to say, wait a minute, why would you store all of those precipitated materials in your kidney when you should be urinating them out? Do you guys see where I'm going with this? We can keep doing this all day long if you want. If you have a health condition that you're wondering, could we help you with? Use the chat below right there. In Facebook and YouTube, type out what you have. Hey, Dr. Ernst, I would like help from the blah, blah, blah. I'll even spend time after the radio connecting the dots for you. If you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, a palpitation, arrhythmia, or you've been labeled as some sort of heart health disease issue, I implore you, download my free ebook, Heart Disease, Heal Thyself. Every single step of what you need to do is in here, including the history of how plaquing is completely not the answer. This is not what's happening. This isn't what you need to fix. You don't need to decrease your cholesterols to fix a heart problem. You need to find the underlying root cause. 704-906-2094 is the number for that. 704-906-2094. And listen, I know some of you only just hopped on the show right now. So what have we been talking about all day today? There is now what is known as your brain-heart biochemical communication pathway. It is the neurological communication that happens between your brain and every organ in your body, in this instance, your heart. There are studies that have been done. Listen to this. They took mice and they wrapped wires around their vagus nerves, and they started zapping them with certain frequencies. And what they found is they can induce changes in blood pressure, in bradycardia, tachycardia, which is your heart rates. They can change the rhythms. They can make a heart do something incorrect, which are the precursors for heart disease medically. And then when they reset the electrical tone, all of it went away. So in cases of animals being tested where vagus nerves are being stressed and irritated, we induce heart disease. When we reduce that stress on the vagus nerve, those same effects that were created disappear. What does that tell you? It tells you that you more than likely have a vagal nerve interference and your heart is doing something it shouldn't. And that if you get rid of the vagal nerve interference, your heart will naturally start to come back and take care of itself. We talked about the fact that your feelings, how you react to your environment, are also chemically directed to your heart. There's this old phrase of the type A, stressed out, entrepreneurial person who dies of a heart attack at 45 because they had so much stress and they were like Wall Street and they were, big business, working from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. Pop, they had a heart attack. Well, see, the problem with that is not everybody that does that has that problem. And then get this. You have those people who are unemployed and staying at home and playing video games all day long and have the posh, less stressed life, and they have heart attacks. So what are we learning here, guys? Heart disease is not a genetic condition. You didn't inherit it from your family. It is not connected to your cholesterol levels at all. Study after study after study. Dr. Ernst, I completely disagree with you. My cardiologist said my cholesterol is 250 and I'm going to have a heart attack. Ask them to show you the study that says that you're going to have a heart attack. Ask them to show you the 1,000 people who have high cholesterol that all 100% had a heart attack. It doesn't exist and it's not out there. Well, they told me I need to take my cholesterol drugs to lower it so I can lower my heart disease risks. Okay. Ask them to show you the studies that show people with low cholesterol have less risk of heart attack. It doesn't exist. So wait a minute, Dr. Ernst, you're saying that by following my doctor's advice, I'm not changing my heart risks at all. Correct. Well, I thought that they had my best interest in mind. Well, they probably do, but they are literally working off research from like the 1960s. I'm telling you for a fact, if you want to know if your heart is healthy, number one, find out if your vagus nerve is blocked. Number two, find out if you're oxygenating your cell tissues properly. Number three, start wearing a pulse ox. They're little tiny clips you put on your fingers, and it gives you your numbers. If you are anything south of 95% while awake and walking around and breathing, you're deoxygenated. 100% would mean every single red blood cell that's passing across that meter has oxygen connected to it. That's very rare, unless you're on oxygen. Most people float between 98, 97, 96%. If you start seeing that when you stick a pulse oximeter on your finger, numbers like 94, 92, 91, 89, that right there, my friend, is risk for heart disease. Now watch this. The best time to check your oxygenation is when you are asleep. You know why? Because now we're measuring the autonomic system. You have unconsciously left your body and you're letting it take care of itself. And the autonomic system will present its ugly head usually at night. So you slap that pulse oximeter on your finger at night when you are no longer connected to controlling your body, and then we really see the ugly stuff. Well, during the day, my pulse ox is 96, 97, 98, 96, 97. I must be good to go. You're awake, my friend. Go to sleep and have that thing on there. Well, Dr. Ernst, I'm out cold. How am I supposed to know what my numbers are? Guys, they have apps on phones that can track this stuff for you. There's a ring called a Loki ring. I'll put some links there for you. We just learned about this. You stick it on your finger or your thumb. You let it read your pulse ox all night. And I'm telling you, some crazy things show up. And it's actually designed to ping every time you go less than 90. So watch this, guys. If you're going less than 90 more than even once, you're at risk for heart disease because it's a signal of deoxygenation of your blood. Now, some of you are going to do this test and you're going to go, holy cow, 50, 60, 70 times at night I went below 90. You are just self-diagnosing yourself with some sort of an apnea-ish or apnea where throughout the evening you're not breathing enough to get enough oxygen. And you know what the classic signs and symptoms of this are? Fatigue, non-restorative sleep, elevated blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, arrhythmias, palpitations, elevated blood sugars, elevated triglycerides. Do you see where I'm going with this, guys? It's not that hard when you look down to the basics. Think of it like this. How long can you go without food before you would die? About 40 days, most people. Some of you will be like, I can only go 4 minutes. Nah, I'm not talking about being hungry. I'm talking about like leaving the earth. 40 days no food, you'd be done. Now, how long can you go without water? Some people 4 or 5 days, but when you don't drink water for that long time, the dehydration kicks in. It can be so severe you can die. Okay, try to go 5 days without drinking any liquids at all. You're not going to make it. How long can you go without air, though? Most people, average person, 4 or 5 minutes. I think the world record holder might be like 9, 10, 11 minutes. But guys, those are people who have trained their bodies to deal with something like that. Wim Hof swam like 7 minutes under a frozen lake. Like that's not you, right? So most people have a hard time holding their breath for longer than 2, 3, 4 minutes. But if you were put in a room with no oxygen, in 4 minutes, sayonara. But watch this. How long can you go without your brain sending a signal down the spinal cord to your heart or your lungs? It's about 4 nanoseconds. As soon as I slice through that spinal cord, everything shuts down in nanoseconds. So let's look at the hierarchy of heart health. Well, I should change my diet, Dr. Ernst. I should start eating vegan. That's got a 40-day effect. I should drink more water, Dr. Ernst. Well, yeah, but that's a 4 or 5-day effect. I should breathe better, Dr. Ernst. Now we're getting somewhere. That's a 4-minute effect. I need to focus on abdominal breathing. I need to make sure I don't breathe with my chest. I need to check my oxygen. I need to start seeing if I'm actually re-oxygenating my body when I sleep at night. Now we're getting somewhere, but watch this. I need to make sure my vagus nerve is connected. I need to make sure that my brain is sending signals to my heart 24/7 in proper tone of all good times. Now you're really getting to where you're crushing this thing called heart disease. Hey, the book is called Heart Disease, Heal Thyself. It's electronic and it's free. Everything I just described to you is in here. And if you join me for the webinar I'm hosting on the 12th of November, I'm going to show you how to custom create it for you in a simple method so you can find out how to solve this thing called heart health. No matter if you have high blood pressure, cholesterol, arrhythmias, palpitations, or some sort of a heart health issue, you should download this book. Trust me, it has information that's going to rock your world. 704-906-2094 is how you get it. Call, and my call center will say, what's your name? What's your email? They'll send it to you. Or pick up the phone and text the word heart plus the number 704-906-2094 and your email. And guess what? Pa-ching! You have the ebook in your hands and you have access to the webinar that we're hosting on the 12th of November. Okay, we got like a minute and a half. In summary, guys, you can take control of your heart health. You can lower blood pressure, cholesterol, reset palpitations, arrhythmias when you just do that basic hierarchy of needs. Food, 40 days. Water, 4. Air, 4 minutes. Nerve supply, 4 seconds. Let's focus on the top 2 because, see, all of you are focusing on the other ones. I should drink more water. I should change what I eat. I should do this. My heart will get healthier. I mean, yes, but go for the big bang bucks. Right? Get your nerves fixed, get your oxygen up, and boom, your heart will have an immediate reaction. If you'd like to learn more about this and our approach to functional medicine, askdrernst.com. Type in any health condition in the search bar, and you'll find resources and information available to you. Don't forget, I think it's right there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit us up on Facebook. Follow along with the conversation, and you'll stay in tune with techniques on how to heal yourself. If you have a question or a comment right now, down below, ask away. Too many times you guys watch these videos and no one asks a question. Ask away. It's free health advice. It's free information. If you have a condition and you're wondering, does nerve connect? Does oxygen connect? Type it below and I'll help you in the right direction. And don't forget, every single Saturday we come at you live with information, health and healing, and how to become your own doctor. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I look forward to seeing you guys next week as we carry this conversation over into, again, how to heal yourself from whatever condition you're dealing with. And our Heart Health Summit is on November 12th. Last chance, guys, right now. The ebook is free. Heart Heal Thyself. 704-906-2094. That's 704-906-2094. Hey, it's the Ask Dr. Ernst Show. Love that you tuned in today, and I'll see you guys next week. Be blessed. Have a great day.